and how Chris and Sachin are kind of navigating the situation. So let's start off with Chris. What are your thoughts on what's going on right now? We saw the S&P get to 36.5, which is the new low for the year. All of 2021 gains have been erased 6 months into 2022. So how are you navigating this right
now? To be honest with you, not much different than how I've been navigating over the last 6 months. I remember I told you guys, like, I was not going to be in tech for much, and I was just going to stay in energy because there was so much pent-up demand for energy use. Energy did take a little bit of a hit today, but overall, that's one of the sectors that's been up for the last 6 months. I do see some level of activity starting to happen more on the U.S. side when it comes to oil and natural gas. But it's not nearly enough capital that's being allocated to it to make any material difference. So I think we've still got a lot of pain to go. We could see oil hit 150, but I don't know. So right now, majority of my profile is hanging back in energy right now, and I'm just relaxing. I think there is a point where I am going to transition out of energy within the next maybe 90 days and then just go right back into growth tech, because a lot of great growth tech names have started to come down to the point where the risk is pretty much all gone. So it'd be smart to kind of go into the play before everyone else starts to get in. I know everyone's like, oh, are you trying to time the bottom? And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to time the bottom necessarily. I'm just trying to get in at a price that I feel is very fair. But I think we've still got some time to go. Me, I've been telling you guys, like, I'm in the market to buy a house. So my plans have kind of been pushed back at least a couple of years. I do see a lot of price reductions coming. So I'm not sticking around. I'm not going to buy a house at the highest price with the highest interest rates out there. If I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to get a huge discount, right? So I'm, like I said, I'm just waiting.
Sachin, how are you navigating? And we were also talking off camera what you think about the S&P levels. And so can you give some thoughts on where you see the S&P going over the next 90 days?
Hey, first, it's good to see both of you guys. So I was in an investor conference last week, and I was meeting like several investors, especially a lot of them from energy sectors in the region and a lot in the private equity. My view, like with all the information that I've heard and all the companies that I'm working, is that we are probably going to see S&P level far lower than expected. Like, for example, I mean, if I take the average PE declines for S&P over the last 5 or 6 mid-tier kind of bear market in the last decade, it brings us back to the level of 3,200, 3,300. Now, what we are in is not like a small or like a mild recession or this is something similar to what happened in the dot-com time or what happened in the financial crisis. So there is going to be a panic, and I expect S&P to actually bring the levels below 3,000. That's my view. I could be wrong. And I will not be surprised if S&P goes and tests levels between 2,600 and 2,900. Now, what does it mean for Nasdaq? Now, Nasdaq has declined slightly more or relatively more compared to S&P. Now, this is one thing everyone has to understand, that what has changed since in the financial crisis. There is much more passive investment. Now, when you invest in indexes are volume weighted. That means a company that has higher volume, they always get the more money, and this is causing the divergence in index because the volume weight for different companies are different. So if it plays out, there is a fair chance that the decline in Nasdaq could be even severe than what we are expecting in S&P. How it happens and what level it goes, it definitely requires intervention at some point of time. The normal tools of intervention for Feds are reduce the interest rate or increase liquidity. And we both know, we all know that is not going to happen at this particular point. So Fed and the US administration is out of sources. Another way to reduce inflation is that you give a shock to the system. That means suddenly say the oil price and energy prices are so high that you suddenly start seeing a real demand destruction. That means people are forced, because right now there are no inventories. You need to have more supplies than demand at some point of time to actually ease it down. So whether it's manufacturing, suppliers, bottleneck in supply chains, energy, the demand is actually still way above than the supply is. So that thing has to go down until and unless inflation will just keep kicking in. So how I'm navigating, I'm staying in cash, what cash I have, what I'm invested. Like all of you know that all of my public equity investment is in Palantir. So I'm holding that position. I'm not selling any covered calls at this level. I have a cash, some cash in hand.
One second, Sachin. Amit, can you let Dom in? Send him the link. There you go.
I sent the link. Yeah.
Gotcha. Sorry about that. Sachin. Go ahead.
So my plan at this particular point is that as soon as I finish my projects, most likely by July, August, I want to watch until that time, and from that point, I'll mostly open like a more covered call based account for tech investing. So
Sachin, do you see oil going to 120 or 100?
I'm seeing in parabolic moves is oil breaching of 150 and 180.
So you think it's going up, oil?
It is holding above 100. That means the pressure is upward. 100 is very expensive oil. 120 is very expensive oil, but it is holding. And at this particular point, even the oil is at $120. There is no ease in supply. Supply is still tight. So until unless somehow Biden managed to charm Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi, okay, I don't see any other way.
What about demand destruction? Like if there is a recession and people stop taking flights and going on vacation, then could that help with reducing?
So demand destruction has 3 steps. Okay, the first step of demand destruction is when people start complaining of high prices. This is what we are in today. The second step of demand destruction is like when their people start reducing how much they are actually consuming oil. That hasn't happened yet. The third step of demand destruction is when the economy goes down, people don't even have money to spend. So we have to go into the step 2 and the step 3 yet, which has not happened. So at this particular point, there is no demand destruction.
There's one thing I would just want to add real quick. I know some of the people in the comments section, they were like, why are you guys talking about oil? Why are you guys talking about the economy? I thought this was the Palantir podcast. Why don't you talk about Palantir? Right? I get that. And a lot of people think that everything is always about investing in just the company. Well, you also have to look at the macro picture too, because if you don't look at the macro and you only focus on the company, literally you'll get killed. Like I understand the logic behind, oh yeah, we should just focus on this one little company who's doing that. But the rest of the market affects it. If oil prices go up and all these companies stop spending money on other things like software because of it, and their margins are being compressed, that directly affects Palantir's ability to grow, right? So yes, sometimes I know that people are like, why are you guys talking about the macro level stuff? And you don't just talk about Palantir on this podcast. Well, guess what? It all correlates. Even big tech names right now, Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, all of them are down almost 40, 50%. Regardless whether they're good companies and they're doing business or not. So yeah, so you should be focusing on the macro. Anyone that tells you don't focus on the macro, only focus on the company is a complete idiot, and you shouldn't take any investing advice from them. Not that we're giving any investing advice in the first place. So back to you guys.
Also, we have an oil and gas consultant for the past 25 years. So it's really nice to get his thoughts on what's going on. Dom, hello. Happy you are here. Dom, I'll ask you the question, then we'll get into Palantir. How have you been doing this past week with the market?
Yeah, I've been doing okay. Obviously you get, still drawing down. I haven't added or disposed cash. I'm building my position up. I think we have more pain to endure. Me and Sachin were talking about this earlier on Twitter. I think that the NASDAQ can still go lower. I don't see a positive catalyst that would change otherwise. The only immediate positive catalyst I could see would be the war in Ukraine and Russia. If that somehow had peace talks and ended, that would help. Or if China and supply chain really was fixed and fully open. But overall, I just think there's too many things impacting the macro. So we will, until I think someone said earlier, until we really feel the pain and see things bottom out to where we'll have people. You'll have people out of jobs, but yet prices will still be high. And then once we get into that point of recession, I think that's when people will get back into growth. So not that I'm trying to, or not that I think I'll get the bottom, but I think that we just have enough more pain to go through that I'm not going to be so over anxious. I've learned that, to Chris's point, I've been way too over anxious. I mean, I'm no financial expert, man. I'm just like everyone else. And I used to always do index funds, SPY, for 11 years straight. And it was easy. I didn't have to think about it. But then I found this love for individual stocks and wanted to really try to set myself up so I could retire earlier, and thought I had everything figured out. And I was at like 3x my money in 2 years. And then this past year happened, and the market made me wake up and realize who's in control. So you don't have to rush into all your positions. And that was something that FOMO of, this is the lowest. I mean, we talked about this before. I never thought Palantir would get to $7, man. Never. If you were to bet me, I was like, no, that'll never happen. And a lot of that comes down to what Chris alluded to earlier, was when everything's good, you feel like you don't have to pay attention to the macro. We had 0% interest rates, economy's booming, everyone's flooding, money in with SPACs and technology growth. But when things are bad, you have to understand that it does matter about the macro, even if your company is good as Palantir or others, because it will take everything down regardless. So